the first black regiment to fight in the Civil War. But the evening before the ceremony, Europe was confronted by one of his drummers, a high-strung man named Herbert Wright. The two men had words. Wright accused his boss of treating him unfairly, then suddenly stabbed Europe in the neck with a penknife. That night, James Reese Europe bled to death. The loss was incalculable, said the New York Times. Ragtime may be Negro music, but it is American Negro music, more alive than much other American music. And Europe was one of the Americans who was contributing most to its development. The city of New York gave him an official funeral, the first ever granted to a black citizen. Thousands of mourners, black and white, turned out to see the procession pass from Harlem down the West Side to St. Mark's Episcopal Church. He took the colored of this city from their porters' places, said the priest, and raised them to positions of importance as real musicians. The cheers that had greeted the Hellfighters did not echo long. The Ku Klux Klan was on the march now. In New York State and New England and Washington, D.C., as well as in the old Confederacy, determined to crush the aspirations of every minority. During the summer of 1919, African Americans were their most frequent targets. More than 70 blacks were killed by white mobs during the last 9 months of the year. 10 of them returning soldiers, still in uniform.
We returned from the slavery of uniform, which the world's madness demanded of us, to don the freedom of civil garb. We stand again to look America squarely in the face. This country of ours, despite all its better souls have done and dreamed, is yet a shameful land. It lynches. It disenfranchises its own citizens. It encourages ignorance. It steals from us. It insults us. We return from fighting. We return fighting. Make way for democracy. We saved it in France, and by the great Jehovah, we will save it in the USA.
Message.
Or know the reason why.
If we don't come together, we're going to die apart.
Out of the continuing violence against African Americans, a new assertiveness grew.
The old Negro goes. His abject crawling and pleading have availed the cause nothing. Harlem Crusader.
The new Negro, unlike the old-time Negro, does not fear the face of day. The time for cringing is over. The Kansas City Call.
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People launched a nationwide crusade against lynching. Marcus Garvey, the black nationalist leader, called upon his people to abandon any hope of help from white America and look to themselves.
And look to themselves.
He said, no more begging and pleading. Everywhere, African Americans began to build their own institutions. Banks, businesses, baseball football teams. And black writers and artists and musicians now began to talk of a cultural rebirth.
You have people who created music that's really celebrating in its own way democratic possibilities, liberation, freedom of the spirit.
Message.
Who really hadn't experienced everything that democratic society had to offer, but who could look around and see the promise embedded in the society. Jazz is a kind of lyricism about the great American promise and our inability to live up to it in some ways.